Welcome everyone to today's Yin Yoga practice, and today we are going to focus on healing and maintaining mobility in the spine. So our focus today is going to be all around and up and down on the spine. So I hope that you are able to spread out your yoga mat in a nice natural lit spot that you can kind of infuse some of that natural light as it comes in for you. And then also too, I would hope that you do are able to grab a yoga block of some sorts or a blanket as well. These are props that really do help us do this yoga practice in a really supportive way if we do need these things. You can also have a yoga bolster handy, but I do find having a block or two as well as a blanket is very helpful. So just keep those to the side for now. And we are going to start in a seated posture. So easy Sukhasana pose here. If you do find this is very tight on the hips and the knees don't really allow for that mobility to come down, then please use your yoga block to sit on to start. You can place that under the hips, and you can prop yourself up this way, and that feels really good as well too. So we're going to start here today, and we're just going to start with a breath, a little bit of pranayama or something to kind of get that chi in the body going. So what that's going to be today is something very simple. We're just going to take a big inhale through the nose, and as we do so, feel that chest lift and rise as we fill, and then as we exhale, we're going to exhale through the mouth and maybe even just drop the chin a little bit to the chest. So it looks like this. Big inhale through the nose and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Continue doing this. Fully inhaling the lungs and fully exhaling through the lungs, right to that last little bit of air that wants to hold on in the bottom of the lungs. Inhaling and exhaling. You can close the eyes. Few more breaths. This time take a deep breath in. Pause and hold the breath in for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Exhale the breath all the way out. And hold the breath out for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Inhale naturally and exhale. Good. So again, this practice is really going to help to invigorate the brain as well as we work around that spinal column. So when you're ready, go ahead, if you are sitting on a block, just remove your block and make your way onto your hands and knees. From here, we're going to find our downward facing dog. So take those hands forward, spread the fingers wide, curl your toes under, and then lift the hips as you send those sit bones back and up, and start to walk your down dog a little bit as you press one heel down and the other. Just notice how that feels through the body. Keeping That lower belly pulled up and in, relaxing the neck. Taking this time today to really give yourself that active rest. Give yourself that nurturing that you need after a long week. And then when you're ready, bending the knees, looking forward to the top of your mat, and then just start to stroll forward as we come to the top of the mat, feet hip distance apart, and then just taking a little inhale here as we come halfway up. Draw your fingertips onto your shins. Roll those shoulders back and open the chest a little bit towards the floor. And on your next exhale, fold forward all the way into your forward fold. This time, bend the knees. Inhale with a nice long, strong back. Come all the way up to stand as we bring the hands up. And exhale, hands to heart center. Take a moment here to check in with your foundation. Really feeling the ball of the big toe, baby toe, inner and outer heel as you connect with the mat. And we're just going to do a half sun salutation here as we inhale and sweep the arms up. Exhale and swan dive forward. Inhale halfway up onto the shins. Exhale and fold forward. Inhale, rise all the way up. Exhale, hands to heart center. Again, inhale. Exhale and swan dive. Inhale halfway. Exhale and fold. Inhale, rise all the way up. Exhale, hands to heart center. Inhale, sweep it up. Exhale and fold. Halfway lift, shins. Exhale and fold. Draw the belly in. Inhale, rise all the way up. And exhale, hands to heart center. 2 more of these as we inhale and exhale, swan dive. Inhale, halfway up. Exhale and fold. Inhale, rise all the way to the top. And exhale, hands to heart center. 1 more time as you inhale, nice sweet flow here. Exhale and swan dive. Halfway to lift. Exhale and fold. Inhale, rise all the way up. Exhale, hands to heart center. Take a moment here to enjoy that as we just close the eyes. Check in with your foundation again. Check in with your breath. This time, we're going to move into a forward fold, our first yin posture today. As we inhale, sweep the arms up. And as we exhale, we're going to fold forward. You may want to go ahead and maybe heel toe the feet out a little wider if you're feeling a little bit iffy in that balance. And then go ahead and fold the crown of the head towards the floor. You're going to take the elbows and cradle the elbows in the opposite hands. You're going to keep the knees slightly bent. And you're going to slowly draw that belly towards the thighs as you release the crown of the head. And just stay here. If you want to take a little bit of sway from side to side, you can do that. And just being careful here if you have high blood pressure, any glaucoma, any vertigo, just be careful in this forward fold. Perhaps you just stay in your mountain pose in Tadasana, standing at the top of your mat and breathing. And we're going to hold this. Each of our postures today we're holding for at least 2 minutes. If you want to make this a little bit more invigorating for the upper body, you can go ahead and maybe take the hands behind you, interlace the fingers, and just let those arms fall over towards the top of your mat. Again, just noticing how the head feels. All right, the neck, make sure the neck's relaxed. And just continuing to hold that pose. Letting the elbows be heavy, the shoulders heavy, the upper back heavy. As we just let gravity take its form here, take its effect. Finding the breath. And in these yin postures today, finding that stillness. Once you have found your edge, that edge, as I have explained before in some of the classes, is kind of like you're coming up to a wall of resistance. You need to find that resistance on the muscle, and then you need to lean into that a little bit. So we don't want to push right past it. We don't want to create any pain, any real discomfort. We just want to find the resistance, lean into it, and then hold that. This is how we're going to make lasting effect on that connective tissue, on that fascia in the body. How we're going to bring some mindfulness to the mind, to the brain. Seeing if you can let go and lean a little further into that posture, keeping that edge. Of course, if you need to adjust the posture, feel free, adjust, make those adjustments, and then again, come back into stillness. Here in this forward fold, allowing yourself this time to really find that last little bit of resistance against that posture. And as we come out of these yin postures, I want you to come out of them very, very slowly as I cue you. Because we've spent a lot of time in them, you may notice some stiffness, maybe a little bit of discomfort or soreness. So we need to really come out of them mindfully and slowly. So when you're ready, you're just gently going to uncross those elbows, release the fingertips to the floor. You're going to bend the knees. Inhale again as we come up nice and slow. Halfway lift onto those shins. And as we exhale this time, bring the fingertips to the floor. And then go ahead and gently set one knee down and then the other knee. Good. Let's take a couple of cat-cows here. So cat-cows, knees are underneath the hips. Wrists are under the shoulders. Spread those fingers nice and wide. If this does hurt the wrists, then feel free to make fists to keep that wrist in neutral. And on our inhale, we're going to drop the belly, lift the tailbone, and then widen the collarbones forward. And then as we exhale, press into the hands and the shins as we round the spine into our cat pose. Inhale into your cow. Exhale into your cat. Taking this through a round of 5. Adding your breath, your pace to it. And after your last round, making your way into your tabletop with a nice neutral spine. And then we're going to come to sit on the heels. So we're going to move into saddle pose. It's a fairly intense pose, especially around the knees and the quads. So if you do suffer from any knee problems, then I suggest I'm going to show you hero pose first. So if this does bother you, then I suggest this is your option. You can always bring a block and sit it between the feet as you sit back towards the block, okay? Placing your hips on the block. Toes are down, okay? Your tops of your feet are on the mat, and you can stay here in hero's pose. This might be all the stretch you need as you sit it up nice and tall and close the eyes. If you want to take this a bit further into saddle pose, then I suggest you move the knees apart, okay? You bring the big toes to touch. So big toes touch, knees are slightly apart, and then you're going to make your way back. So if this is fine right here, and this is as far as you can go, then feel free. That's kind of like hero pose I just showed you. If you can bring yourself back onto the hands, keeping the knees touching the mat, okay? As the knees start to lift, you need to come back up, all right? Keeping those knees down. We're just going to take it down in increments depending on how this feels. So if this feels good right here, hold it. If you can find an edge, lean into it here. If you can take it further and you want to come back onto your elbows, then if you've got two blocks, you can always prop yourself up on the blocks. Or you can bring yourself right back onto the elbows. Again, keeping those knees down towards the mat. If you find this is really stressful underneath the ankles and the tops of the feet, then feel free to put a blanket under them. Staying here. If coming right down onto your back is accessible to you, then go ahead and do that. All right? Not everybody can get into that position, but if that feels good, go ahead. For me, I enjoy coming back onto my forearms. That feels good. That's about as far as I can go here. And then you can just kind of rest the head where it's comfortable. Close the eyes. And again, just find that edge. Lean into that edge. So you feel that wall of resistance. Feel the resistance on the muscle as you begin to try to work on stretching that connective tissue and that fascia around the muscle, starting to mold it. So we're really trying in our yin postures to stretch, all right, to twist, and to also compress the fascia and the connective tissue. So we're really starting to work on the building block or that scaffolding around all the muscles. And we need to hold these postures for a minimum of 2 minutes in order to do so. So again, just tapping in, finding a breath. I find by keeping my focus on the breath, it allows me to stay present, to stay in this moment. And of course our minds will wander, and that's okay. Just as long as we recognize that and we bring it back to the present moment. So our 3 main points in Yin Yoga, our 3 main rules is finding that edge, creating stillness, and then the time, staying in that posture. And 2 minutes goes by fairly quickly. It sounds like a long time, but it isn't really. Yin Yoga has the power to really affect us physically and really help us with that flexibility, with healing the body. But it also has the power to really quiet the mind and really give us focus, allowing us to spend time in that quiet. Couple of more breaths. And when you're ready, again, remembering to come out of these postures very slowly. You're going to work your way back onto the hands. Slowly make your way up, and even if you're in hero's pose, start to come forward ever so slowly, making your way onto your hands and knees. Go ahead if you want to take one leg back and kind of shake it out, and then the other side, shake it out. Maybe shaking out the ankles, rolling out the ankles a couple of times to really help adjust those ankles back to normal. And then when you're ready, rolling yourself onto one hip and swinging those legs forward towards the top of your mat. We're now going to work our way into banana pose. Banana pose is a nice lateral flexion of the spine, so you won't really need too many props here for this one. We're going to bring ourselves down onto our back. And then we're going to go ahead and reach the arms overhead. We're going to extend the legs all the way out. And I want you to start to walk or shimmy your legs over to the left corner of your mat. From here, then you start to work the shoulders over towards the top left corner of your mat. You can go ahead and just grab onto that right wrist with the left hand as you start to pull that right arm over towards the left. So we're creating a nice little C shape in the spine here, or banana pose or banana shape, hence banana pose. And you can stay here. If you want to drop your chin towards that left shoulder, feel free. You've got an option here to take that right leg and cross it over the left ankle for a little bit more traction and stretch and sensation through that right hip and right waist. You've also got the option with the arms, if you like, to go ahead and just make a little square above the head as you grab on to opposite elbows. Depending on shoulder mobility here and what that feels like. And again, once you've found that posture that feels good, where you can feel that resistance, you're comfortable with being a little uncomfortable, then go ahead and find your stillness. And we'll just spend that time here as we allow this resistance and this stretch the time to really make that difference in the muscles, in the soft tissues, in the connective tissue. Finding a nice, even breath that works for you. Couple of more breaths here. And slowly releasing that right wrist, working that upper body back to center, uncrossing the legs, and slowly walking the legs back to center. And then go ahead and we're going to work over to the other side. So gently start to walk the legs over to that right corner of the mat. And then you can go ahead and adjust the upper body as you bring the shoulders over towards that right corner, creating that banana pose. And then this time, arms overhead, grabbing hold of that left wrist as you gently pull the left wrist over towards the right. Maybe this is enough sensation right here. If you want to go ahead and cross the left ankle over the right ankle, you can do so. If you want to go ahead and box those arms overhead, see if you can adjust whichever way you did it on the other side. See if you can kind of adjust it and reverse it on this side. So there's a little pull on that left elbow. Maybe a little drop of that chin towards that right shoulder. Taking some time here in this posture for at least 2 minutes. Working all aspects of the spine today. Flexion, extension, lateral flexion, rotation. I'll try not to talk through this whole practice today. Just give you some moments of silence to really dig into your posture and really find that effectiveness. Also notice as you breathe how that posture changes. On your inhales, where do you feel it more? On your exhales, where do you feel it? And again, not necessarily changing anything, just noticing. Just using that to stay present. Slowly, we're going to release that left wrist, bring ourselves back to center as we uncross the ankles, and then go ahead and just draw those knees in towards the chest. Maybe giving yourself a little hug here as you draw the knees in. And then slowly releasing. Maybe you just kind of give yourself a little rock and roll, side to side, little massage on the low back. And then gently rolling yourself to one side, doesn't matter which side, as you bring the knees and the body over. You're just gently going to help yourself up with one arm and then the other arm as you roll up. Head's the last thing to come up. Good. And then we're going to take ourselves into melting heart pose. So we're going to make our way onto our hands and knees. Melting heart is a really nice opener through the chest, but also affects the spine as we have a little bit of extension here. So I want you to start by lining the knees up underneath the hips. And throughout this pose, I want you to keep those hips stacked over the knees as much as possible. You're going to start to walk the arms forward. And then if you need to, you can place a block in front of you in order to place the forehead down on. Maybe start there, and then you can kind of work your way from there. So as you walk those arms nice and forward, keeping those hips above the knees, you're going to release your forehead down to the block or down towards the mat. So starting where you need to, you can always remove the block and then go ahead and release the forehead. And go ahead, release those arms down onto the mat. Staying here. Again, finding that resistance, finding that edge, as we do with every posture here. Then becoming still. And we're going to hold this. Okay, so some of these postures today obviously are a little bit more challenging than others. You can always use your tools here, your yoga props, or anything you have. If you only have a pillow or maybe some books, you can use those under the forehead as well. So again, working through this posture as we work to keep those hips stacked over top of those knees. If this is really comfortable for you and you want to take this a little further, you can always prop your chin onto the mat and lift the eyes forward. If you like and you'd rather maybe put one side of the head down onto the mat, maybe that feels good. And then halfway through you can switch to the other side. I find forehead on the mat for me during this pose is perfect, as I have really, really tight shoulders. So for me, I find this extremely, extremely tough. I don't really have to go that far in this pose. I really do feel it in my shoulders. I do feel a nice chest opener, but I tend to feel it a lot in the shoulders. So I have to be very careful with this one. I can't go too deep or too far. But it does feel really good once you've done this and you come out of it. So we tend to really feel that benefit of these postures afterwards. Now, slowly to come out of this posture. Again, it's going to feel a little weird. You might feel a little discomfort. So I like to shift my weight forward a little bit first onto my elbows. And then I can gently make my way up. If you need to maybe take a little couple of cat-cows here. It's kind of nice just to move through a range of motion. Kind of soften that edge a little bit. And then when you're ready, slowly making your way back down into a seated posture. Now again, if you need to sit on something, grab a block, place it under the hips. We're just going to do a seated spinal twist. Gentle ones, so We're not going to go too crazy here with any arms. We're just going to take a nice big inhale. And as we exhale, we're going to twist to the right. You're going to take your right arm behind you. Just place your fingertips or flat palm on the floor. Left hand comes on top of that on top of the right knee or the right thigh. Before you start going into the twist, let's take a nice big inhale again. Lengthen the spine. And then exhale as you start to twist from the core, okay, from the abdomen and the low back. And then you can add a little twist through the ribs, through the chest, and then maybe through the head and the neck as you look back over that right shoulder, sitting it up nice and tall. And then once you've found your edge and you can feel that little wall of resistance with the muscles, go ahead and just close the eyes. And just see if you can keep yourself in stillness here for this 2 minutes. Need to make any adjustments again if there's any uncomfortableness, or maybe you want to move into the posture a little deeper. Go ahead, take a moment to do that. Find your stillness again. Couple of more breaths. And then slowly start with the head first as you bring it back to center, unwinding through the chest, the ribs, and the core. Again, take a nice big inhale. And as we exhale, we're going to twist to the left this time. Left hand behind us in line with that left sit bone. Right hand on top of the left knee. Again, inhale, lengthen. See if you can keep that length as you begin to take that gentle twist back, beginning that movement with that whole core. All right, the abs and the low back, everything, all that core, right up to those ribs. And then you can start to move through the ribs and the chest. And then gazing back over that left shoulder. Find some length on those inhales. Getting a little taller and exhaling into that twist. As with any other yoga practice, this is a practice. It's not yoga perfect or yin perfect. It's a yin practice, a yoga practice. So we're practicing keeping ourselves present, as much as we're practicing the postures themselves. We're practicing letting go. Relaxing those shoulders, just noticing if they're a little bit curled up around the ears. Sorry, we are practicing from home. As I mentioned, it's not yoga perfect. There are sounds around us, things that we just kind of have to absorb and just let it be a part of our practice. And then ever so slowly we begin to unwind from the neck first, followed by the chest, the ribs, and the core. Taking a nice big inhale and exhale it out. Good. Slowly we're going to make our way into a seated position here with the legs extended. So for this position, it's called caterpillar pose, or also known as in yoga our seated forward fold or Paschimottanasana. You can also here grab a blanket to prop yourself up on the hips. If you find this is really tight in the low back for you, that's also an option. So you can make that blanket as high as you need it to be and then just sit on that. Okay. So from here, I'd like you to just go ahead and kind of pull a little bit of the flesh away from the tailbone or from the sit bones. All right, so you can really feel those bony protrusions on the bum. You can really feel those connected to the mat. So from here, we're just going to take a nice long spine, take a big inhale, and then as we exhale, we're going to start to walk the hands forward. We can land the hands on the mat. We can land them on the ankles. All right, if you have lots of flexibility here, you can always take peace fingers around the big toes. Or if you like, even grabbing around the bottoms of the feet with the thumbs at the base of the big toes. Inhaling and exhaling, we can round the spine and maybe drop the chin towards the chest. If you need a bend in those knees, feel free, okay? It's okay to have that. Again, we're finding your resistance here. Where does it feel the best to lean into that a little bit? Where you're okay and you're comfortable to hold that. So continuing there, holding that posture. Good work. Our hamstrings can be extremely tight. All right, it's a very tight one for most people. In this forward flexed position on the spine, you are probably feeling that in the backs of the legs, in the hamstrings. You're also probably feeling that as a nice stretch through the back as well. Even if you're dropping your chin towards your chest, you'll feel that work its way all the way up to the upper back. And just remembering that even though we talk about finding that little bit of resistance or that little bit of pressure and not necessarily discomfort, but that little bit of stretch or twist or compression on the muscle, nothing should be painful. Okay? This isn't about no pain, no gain. All right? That isn't about that at all. You know, we're practicing finding where is our edge? What are we comfortable enough to hold? We're practicing continuing to breathe, keeping our focus on that breath, keeping our presence. A few more breaths. And then slowly we start to walk the hands back and we start to gently roll it up the spine, one vertebrae at a time. Head's the last thing to come up. And then slowly we're going to make our way onto our bellies. So we're going to come over into Sphinx pose. So we just did a nice forward flexion on that posture. Now we're going to do a little bit of extension. So laying on the bellies, we're going to bring our forearms onto the mat. And I want you to line your elbows up underneath the shoulders. From here, you're going to spread the fingers wide, making sure that your middle finger is facing forward to the top of your mat. I want you to press your forearms down into the mat, and at the same time, pull the elbows back towards the hips, relaxing the shoulders away from the ears. We're lifting that heart center forward and spreading those collarbones. Your gaze is forward. Your chin is even with the floor. You can go ahead and close your eyes. And then I want you to think about pressing your pubic bone, pressing your pelvis down into the mat, and at the same time tucking your tailbone between your legs in order to get that length in the low back. We're relaxing the tops of the feet on the floor. Think of softening the inner thighs, drawing the inner thighs up as you draw or spin those outer thighs down towards the mat. Again, keep pressing down through those forearms. Try not to let the upper body collapse. We want to keep pressing the forearms down, drawing the elbows back, keeping those shoulders away from the ears, keeping some length in that low back as we continue to tuck the tailbone under as we press that pelvis or the hip bones down into the mat. Some healthy compression on the low back. If this doesn't serve you and this is feeling a little bit too much, you can always come on down, stack the hands and just rest the forehead on top of the hands. Continuing to breathe through a couple of more breaths here. Good work. Just keep checking to make sure nobody's got any questions as we go through. So just working my way back into my posture as well. And then to come out of it, slowly lower down, release those hands, maybe stack the forehead if you want to go ahead and give the hips a little wiggle. Maybe you want to bend the knees and do a couple little windshield wiper washes with the feet from side to side. And then releasing. Hands come underneath the shoulders as we gently work our way up onto our hands and knees. And we're going to find child's pose, one of my favorite postures. I like to open the knees wide on this one, bring the big toes to touch, and then go ahead and sit the hips back towards the heels. You can reach the arms forward, and then go ahead and release your forehead either to a block or to the mat. And then release your arms onto the mat as well. So forearms come down. And then see if you can make those armpits nice and heavy towards the mat. As we rest here, finding our stillness. Anybody else out there have the difficulty of having to practice with glasses? I don't know if anybody else has that problem. Again, making those armpits heavy. Feeling this nice stretch all along the spine. Maybe even that side body. And slowly, as we come out of this one today, we're just going to gently start to kind of make our way onto all fours, finding a nice neutral spine, and then making our way onto one hip. And we are going to take our feet towards the top of our mat. We're going to make our way down onto our back, and we are going to work ourselves into what we call cattail pose. So as we come onto our back, we are going to go ahead and we're going to extend the right leg out. We're going to draw the left knee across the chest or across the body towards the right side of the room into a spinal twist. You can stay here if you like, even resting that left foot on top of the right inner thigh. Or if you like to take this a little further into the posture, into cat's tail pose or cat holding tail pose, then you can go ahead, release that left foot down onto the floor, bend the right knee, and reach back with the right hand, or sorry, the left hand, my apologies, to grab hold of the right toes or the right ankle. See if you can keep that right knee facing towards that top of your mat. And then you can rest or work that left shoulder blade down onto the mat. Now, if this isn't accessible to you and it's too hard to go ahead and grab those right toes or the right ankle, just leave the right leg extended. Just find a spinal twist. Wherever you can find your edge, that's what you work with. So we've got a nice twisting, ringing of the spine here, but we've also, if you've got that right foot behind you, tucked behind you into the left hand, you'll probably feel that through the front top part of that right thigh, maybe even into that right hip. See, maybe by working that left shoulder blade down, you might get a nice opening through the chest. And to slowly come out of this. If you have that right knee bent and grabbed hold of that right foot, go ahead and extend the right leg first. Release the foot. Then slowly work that left leg back and over. Slow, slow, slow. As you center the hips again on the mat, bending both knees. Centering that upper back as you work those shoulder blades back down. And then go ahead and switch it over to the other side. Extend the left leg. Draw that right knee over to the left side. You can just stay here in this spinal twist with the right arm extended. That feels good right there. Go ahead. Or perhaps you go ahead and bend that left knee this time. Take the right hand, grab hold of those left toes. See if you can keep that left knee pointing down towards the top of the mat. Maybe you can take it back a little further if you need a little extra to feel that stretch on the front of that left thigh or through the hip flexor. Go ahead and work that right shoulder blade back down. Feel that openness across the chest. Working into this second last posture here today. I like to inhale and feel the length in the spine on during each inhale. Sorry about that. Feel the length in my spine, and as I exhale, I kind of notice a little bit more of a twist. I like to play with the breath like this. It keeps my presence, keeps my mind in the here and now. Couple of more breaths. And then slowly go ahead and release that left leg. And then work that right leg back over as you bring those hips onto the mat, bending both knees, centering those hips and that back. And if you want to bring the knees into the chest one more time, maybe draw those knees in towards the shoulders. And if you want to go ahead and give yourself a little rock and roll from side to side, do so. And then we're going to make our way into our last posture here, our corpse pose, or also known as Shavasana. Making any adjustments you need to. If you want to grab a blanket and place a blanket over you just to stay warm, you can do so. Relaxing those arms by your sides, palms up. Let those feet fall away from one another. Relax those hips. And maybe just notice the shoulders. If you need to lift the shoulder blades one at a time, walk it down the back. Feeling across the front of the chest, open and expand. Feeling a natural curve in the neck and that cervical spine. If it feels a little too excessive, maybe tucking that chin a little bit towards the chest. And then just notice that natural curve in the low back. If you want to go ahead and maybe add any bolster or rolled up blanket under the knees, you can feel free to do that as well. If you have any neck issues, any neck pain, you might want to go ahead and use that folded blanket underneath the neck. Whatever feels comfortable. I want you to stay here in your Shavasana, in your corpse pose. And I just want you to relax everything. Relax the jaw by parting the lips. I want you to soften all of the muscles around the eyes and the mouth. I want you to work down the front side of the body, softening through the shoulders and down in the arms, over the elbows, over the wrists to the fingers. I want you to think about softening across the chest and down over the abdomen, softening the hips, the tops of the thighs and the kneecaps, releasing through the shins, over the ankles to the tops of the feet and the toes. Think about bringing a little softness to the bottoms of the feet, over the arches, over the heels, up through the back of the calves, softening the backs of the knees, the backs of the legs. Bring that softness up over the hips and the butt cheeks. Spread it across the lower back. And soften up over the kidneys, up through that mid-back and between the shoulder blades. And bring that softness across the shoulder blades, down the backs of the arms, to the backs of the hands and the fingertips. And then soften up across the back of the shoulders, up through the back of the neck, to the base of the skull. And then bringing that softness, creeping it up the back of the head, expanding it across to the temples, and softening right up to the crown of the head. Taking a deep breath in through the nose, opening the mouth and exhale. Again, inhale and exhale. One more time. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the mouth. want you to remain here in your corpse pose for as long as you need to be. Just resting, rejuvenating, soaking in your practice today. Taking your time to come out of it whenever you feel that's appropriate. Continue to move often, nourish your body well, and smile more. Thank you for joining today. Namaste.